Good afternoon, everyone. What a privilege and an honor it is to be here with you today. Like Martha said, my name is Lauren Eden, and I'm a second trimester abortion survivor. Yes, you heard that right, an abortion survivor. I'm so thankful to be here today. I grew up in a loving Christian home, and we were at church pretty much every time the doors were open, much like many of you may be today. I'm the oldest of three girls. In fact, my dad and my sister are here today. My parents raised me and my two sisters to love the Lord, and they taught us about Jesus and to love other people. I had a great childhood. I attended college at the University of Georgia, intending to go into broadcast journalism. But right before I graduated from college, I felt the Lord calling me into full-time ministry. So I moved back home to intern at my local church, New Hope Baptist Church in Fayetteville, and I looked for a full-time job. During that summer following graduation, on June 20th of 2004, I was unpacking from a trip, and my mom knocked on my bedroom door. She had a strange expression on her face, one that I couldn't quite read, and as she walked into my room, her big green eyes filled with tears. "I've never meant to keep this from you," she said. "You've always known that you were born premature, but what you didn't know was the circumstances behind your premature birth." "You see, I wanted to have an abortion," my mom said. An abortion? I remember feeling like the air was sucked out of that room. I was in shock. It was like a movie was unfolding before me. It didn't feel real. My mom went on to tell me that when she found out that she was pregnant, she was a freshman in college and my dad was a senior. She told my dad that she was pregnant, and for a while they avoided talking about the subject. But several weeks into her pregnancy, my mom knew she wanted to have an abortion. My dad, on the other hand, was adamant that my mom was making the wrong choice. But my mom made an appointment anyway at an abortion clinic. When she arrived at the clinic, they did an ultrasound. Their measurements showed that my mom was just over 13 weeks pregnant, and the clinic only performed ultrasounds or abortions up to 12 weeks. When I think back to my own 12-week ultrasound when I was pregnant with my first son, my husband and I sat in that tiny little ultrasound room when we got the very first glimpse of our baby boy on that small black and white screen. We studied his little face, his beating heart, and his kicking legs. We were in awe of the life that God had created inside of me. We knew that this precious baby boy that God had given to us was knit together in my womb, and he was fearfully and wonderfully made by God, that God had a purpose and a plan for his life. My mom didn't have that same experience. My mom didn't know the Lord. My mom didn't want to be pregnant, and my mom was determined not to give up her plans of going to law school. So she made an appointment at another abortion clinic. This clinic performed abortions up to 15 weeks. When she arrived at the clinic, she found herself in that same familiar ultrasound room. This time, my head circumference measured in at 15.3 weeks pregnant, but it had only been 2 days since her last ultrasound. My mom went back to her apartment at the University of Arkansas and got an appointment the next morning at a clinic in Dallas, Texas. That particular clinic did abortions up to 21 weeks. But when that clinic did an ultrasound, it showed that my mom was just over 21 weeks pregnant. How could this be? My mom was starting to feel like someone bigger than her was trying to interfere with her plans. The clinic staff sent my mom to their sister clinic on the other side of town. They assured her that they would take their sister clinic's ultrasound results, and they did. Because my mom was in her second trimester, she had to have a 2-day abortion procedure. The abortionist inserted a substance called laminaria into my mom's cervix, which they told her would cause her cervix to fully dilate by the next morning. That night, my mom found herself scared, in labor, and in pain. About midnight that night, my dad called my mom. He asked if he could pray for her. And when he was done praying, God moved in my mom's heart. She told my dad that if my dad would drive to Dallas, Texas, she was 90% sure she would not go through with the abortion. My dad left his house in North Little Rock, Arkansas at 4 o'clock in the morning to drive to Dallas. When he arrived at the clinic, he couldn't find my mom. He was pacing the halls, afraid that she was already in a room having the procedure done. But to his relief, the elevator door opened behind him, and my mom was standing there. She had overslept. My dad hugged my mom, and they went into the clinic to tell the staff that she was not going to go through with the abortion procedure. The abortionist told my mom that her cervix was fully dilated and that my mom's body was ready to give birth. My mom was willing to take the chance. He actually told her when she left the clinic to drive home with her feet on the dashboard so that I wouldn't fall out. The next day, as they drove home, once again, God was at work in my mom's heart. As they drove, my mom recounted all of the obstacles she had faced at each clinic she had been to along the way. My dad smiled. He knew that God was the one who had been preventing my mom from going through with each of her abortion attempts. Every clinic that she went to, my dad was praying that God would intervene. And intervene God did, time and time again. In fact, my dad recounts 15 miracles that God did along the way, which I don't have time to go miracle by miracle today, but trust me when I say amazing miracles that God did. Back in North Little Rock, Arkansas, a young married couple from my dad's church took my mom in. Their names were Bill and Jana. Jana spent her days attending to my mom on bed rest so her cervix could close up and she wouldn't go into premature labor, while also taking care of her 2 young children. At night, she would stay up late with my mom and dad talking about her faith, reading her Bible, and praying with my parents. My mom didn't know it then, but Jana's mom had also wanted to abort Jana, another miracle. After a few weeks of living with Bill and Jana, my mom woke up in the middle of the night one night and knew something was wrong. She was in labor, and it was too soon. She was only 26 weeks pregnant. When my mom arrived at the hospital, the doctor said that there was a 5% chance that I would survive. And if I did survive, there was a 95% chance that I would have brain damage. Throughout my mom's labor, my dad and Jana prayed. On July 26, 1982, at 8:26 a.m., I was born, weighing in at 2 pounds, 6 ounces. Miraculously, not only did I survive, but I had no brain damage and very few complications from my premature birth. My mom had planned to put me up for adoption, but when she saw my tiny body that would fit right in the palm of her hand, she decided she had to keep me. I spent 53 days in the NICU, and shortly after I was released from the hospital, my parents got married, and I was able to be at their wedding. Today, I'm 40 years old, and my parents just celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary this past October. I have a wonderful husband. I have 3 sons. I've had the opportunity to serve on 3 different church staffs in the Atlanta area, sharing Jesus with the next generation. I've also had the opportunity to connect with an amazing network of people. That network is called the Abortion Survivors Network. Our organization's mission is to find abortion survivors around the world and connect them to each other and to resources to help them heal after finding out their stories. I'm one of more than 600 survivors that ASN has connected with over the past few years and has helped me be empowered to use my voice to represent a very underrepresented group in this movement. And if there's one message that I could leave you with today, it's that God has placed on my heart that He's calling the church to step up. I think about the support system my parents had and the people from the church who poured into their lives, and I'm incredibly humbled. I think about people like Bill and Jana, a young married couple with preschoolers, who gave my dad their credit card and told him to, quote, go and save his baby on their dime. Then they took my mom in and they cared for her. They prayed for her and shared Jesus with her. And even the hospital considered them my grandparents and allowed Jana into the NICU to visit me every day. I have no doubt that God used Bill and Jana in such an instrumental way that my mom came to know the Lord because of them and my dad's prayers. And I'm standing here today because of their willingness to say yes to God. As I stand here and I look at all of you today, I see many different faces of people in whom God has instilled a passion for unborn children and their families, many of whom could be in very difficult situations, many of whom need our prayers, our financial support, and our encouragement. And church, I say to you today, it's time to stand up. In this post-Roe world, it's time to fight. It's time to be the hands and feet of Jesus in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and in our state. God has given us a mission field. He's given us an opportunity to save lives. And church, we need you more than ever before. Will you be the one? Will you be the person who, like my dad, is willing to pray for and defend innocent lives? The one who, like Bill and Jana, is willing to serve and take in an unwed or a single mother and love and support and minister to her and her baby. The one who, like my dad's church family, came alongside of my mom, my dad, and me as a baby in a very difficult situation to be the hands and feet of Jesus. Not only is my life a living testimony of the power of prayer and the power of a miracle-working God, but it's a living testament to the influence of one couple who was willing to say yes to God. So if you will say yes, you will step into the greatest story of all time. It's a story of redemption, written from the very beginning of time. You will influence lives and families for eternity. My life, my family, and my story would be much different if not for God's people. Today, God can intersect your story with someone else's and change both of your lives. He writes the best stories, and I'm living proof of that.